Okay. And then we are live on Facebook too. So again, thank you for coming out tonight, for joining us. We really wanted to talk about this topic because it is something near and dear to our hearts. We really believe that, um, sorry, I have to hit two buttons here. We really believe that the way that the grocery stores supply their food really affects our environment. And we are going to kind of dive into that and why exactly we are trying to change the way that people are supplying their food in grocery stores. So I am going to go ahead and jump over and share my screen. Okay, can everybody see this okay? As soon as it's done loading. Okay, yep. Wonderful. So my name is Laura Kastenbauer. I'm from Clean Water Action, and I am joined here tonight by Lisa, who is from MN350. And we're going to go over some just Zoom logistics, just in case you're kind of newer to Zoom in general. We want to kind of talk about how exactly to unmute yourself, to turn off video, whatever you want to do. So please rename yourself to include your pronouns. I have to do that as well. The chat is open. If you would like to speak, go ahead and use that star or asterisk to be able to speak during the next group conversation. Please keep yourself on mute when all of the presenters are speaking. And while others are speaking as well, it makes it so that we can hear each other extremely well. If you have any need of assistance, do not hesitate to message us in the chat. We are happy to help. So this event is recorded. If you turn off your video, you can avoid having your face be recorded. So this is kind of a breakdown of the event agenda. So we're going to start off with a land acknowledgement and then move to introductions. And then we're going to talk about intersections of food systems and climate justice. And then we're going to jump into a campaign that we are launching, which is the grocery store campaign. And any actions that you can take and questions will come right after that. And then closing and any other closing remarks as well. So Lisa, do you want to take over?
Sure, yeah, thanks. So I'll be reading this. So Minnesota is built on the sea state of Anishinaabe and Dakota people. And we invite anyone outside of Minnesota to acknowledge the land you are on as we begin our meeting and important work. When we talk about land, it is part of who we are. It's a mixture of our blood, our past, our current, and our future. We carry our ancestors in us and around us. And today, Indigenous people continue to protect and remain in relationship with these relatives and will do so until the end of time. It is vital to honor these beginnings and recognize the ongoing dedication and importance of Indigenous culture within our communities and within the land that we gather, live, learn, and work on. We are committed to understanding the long-standing history that brought us to reside on this land and understand our place within that history. Land acknowledgements do not exist in a past tense or historical context, as colonialism is an ongoing process, and we need to build our mindfulness of our present participation in it. And of course, land acknowledgements are just the bare minimum we can do to incorporate justice into our work in climate justice and food justice. So reading this is only the very beginning of what we can do to decolonize our minds, our workplaces, all of the work that we do. Let's go ahead to the next slide.
So a little bit about me. My name is Laura Kastenbauer, she, her. I am the Clean Water Action Field to Fork program organizer. And we'll kind of dive into what Field to Fork even is, but what we are really excited about is everything that has to do with the program itself. I was born and raised in Minnesota. I have a passion for environmental justice, especially after I was living in a state that didn't have access to clean water at all. For a while, I was living out of plastic water bottles, and I realized that clean water was a privilege and not a right here in this country, and it should be a right. So that's one of the reasons why I joined Clean Water Action. It's something that I'm very, very passionate about. I lived in Minneapolis for many years, Duluth before that, and I am very excited to be part of this program, part of this team.
Do you want to listen to this, or should I go in the other room?
And I'll go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Chou. I use she, her pronouns. I am the food systems team organizer with MN350. I joined MN350 as a volunteer about 2 years ago now and joined on staff at the beginning of this year. So just going on a year as a part-time organizer. And one of the reasons I'm interested in this work is because I've got a background in food science and have worked with food companies and get to see like the behind the scenes decisions that go into the industrial food system we have surrounding us, and all of the power that they hold. So I was really unsatisfied with the rate of change that happened in food companies. And so I really appreciated the demands we make in organizing in community spaces to make our food system reflect ones that our communities care about. And that really shifts power ultimately, because along with every other industry we have right now, the power is just way too uneven. So that's really why I got interested in this work, and I'm excited to talk to you all more today about it.
So a little bit about Clean Water Action. So you can see our mission right here is to protect water, health, economic well-being, and the community quality of life. So Clean Water Action organizes strong grassroots groups and coalitions and campaigns to elect environmental candidates and to solve environmental community problems. We have offices in 12 different states plus DC. We also have a national branch as well. So here in Minnesota, we are based in Minneapolis. And we're excited to, right now we have, Deanna, you might have to correct me. We have 4 program coordinators who are focused on various issues, and we are very excited to be able to focus on them, such as lead, environmental justice, toxics, PFAS. We're tackling pretty much anything that affects our environment and our water quality here in Minnesota. So the Field to Fork campaign is what I specialize. We are doing, we're focused on sustainable feed and sustainable food. So pretty much what we're focused on is protecting natural resources, including soils, native landscapes, and clean water, of course, for Clean Water Action. We also are using a climate change lens on everything. We realize that every part of sustainable agriculture and agriculture in general can affect climate and can affect our environment as well. So we are really focusing on how exactly our actions, our everyday choices affect climate change. And we're doing that by focusing on 2 major changes. If we can change the market, we can change policy. And if we can change policy, we can change the market. So they kind of feed off of each other. So it's 2 major things that we're focused on at the same time.
And MN350, that a lot of you are familiar with, is an organization that unites Minnesotans as part of a global movement to end the pollution damaging our climate, speed the transition to clean energy, and create a just and healthy future for all. It began in 2010 and is connected to the national network of 350 chapters all across the US. And MN350 has 16 staff members, and we're hoping to continue to grow our staff capacity as we continue to expand our work. This org chart is a little bit outdated, but it kind of gives you a view of how comprehensive our work is when we talk about climate justice. It's everything from the transportation to food to state level policy to pipeline resistance, all of it. And I really love how MN350 is so comprehensive and is able to talk about all of these issues and work on it all simultaneously, because they're all very equally important. And you can see some of our leadership bodies. Some of them are a little outdated, but we still have a BIPOC caucus. We have a board that also oversees everything. So this is a cool graphic to kind of give you an idea of how we work as an organization. And then our food systems team is one of the newer teams in MN 350. We started in 2018, and our team's vision is a just transition to a food system that is local, regenerative, equitable towards those who depend on it, and mindful of its impact on future generations. And even though we're just one piece of MN 350, we also do a whole lot of things. So we work on statewide policy through our Headwaters campaign. We shift production practices through regenerative ag. We've also focused on plant-rich diets and empowering eaters to change our climate impacts in the food we eat, and also on the back end of the food we eat, reducing food waste, and also promote real-life examples of everyone who's doing all this work outside of our group and in other organizations through a podcast called Nourished by MN 350.
So now that we have introduced ourselves, we're going to take a break from the screen itself. We're going to put this in the chat, but we want to meet you all. We have 27 participants. So I think that it would be best to put it in the chat, the questions that we have. So we would like you to go ahead and put in there. There we go. So please share your name, pronouns, where you're calling from, and 1 to 5 words about an aspect of the food system that you want for a healthy life for yourself, your family, future generations, and the land around us. If you are very passionate and would like to share, please come off mute and we can go ahead and talk too while everybody's typing in. I love that. Karen wrote fair trade coffee, chocolate, sugar, bananas, etc. I would love that. And moving away from dependence on big corporations, big ag, it was very important and one of the things that we're going to talk about. Love that.
Yeah, these are all such good ones.
I love this. We have a lot of Minnesota people today. Oh, we have somebody from Chicago. Mary.
I like that one, participatory urban ag. That sounds really fun.
Yeah, there's been a humongous push towards community gardens recently, which I actually really love if you have the time and effort to be able to grow things in a community garden. I know I did one last summer and it was a little bit of work, more than I expected, mainly because we didn't have any water last summer. So you had to go every day and water. Love this.
Yeah, thanks everyone for sharing.
Yes, thank you. Okay. So now that we have kind of gotten to know each other, please keep on typing in your answer if you haven't finished yet. But I want to be respectful of everybody's time tonight. So I'm going to jump back into the slides really quick. Okay. So please keep answering. I'm keeping an eye on the chat.
Yeah, so I can talk now about the intersections of food system, climate justice, all of the good stuff, and the challenges we face. So this graphic might be new to some people, it might be really familiar to others, but you can see, if you click one more time, that food systems, when we look at greenhouse gas emissions in Minnesota by sector, food systems ranks number 3, and really just barely number 3, but really as big as transportation, as energy generation, and agriculture is right up there. So when we talk about food systems being an issue, it's as big of an issue in Minnesota for climate issues as clean cars, as clean energy. And so I'm really happy so many of you are here today to be learning about it or already involved in all of this. And I'm sure you're all doing this amazing work about shifting the narrative about how food is just as important of a climate issue as transportation and energy. And that graphic we just looked at was about greenhouse gas emissions, but really that's only one metric when we talk about food and our impact of food on our environment, our planet. So you can see that first line says food is 26%, but when we look at land use, agriculture is actually 50%. Of the global habitable land is dedicated towards agriculture, and the other half is for forests, urban areas, freshwater, and wildlife. But we use half of it just to feed us humans on the planet. And then when we look at freshwater use, even more of it is dedicated toward agriculture. And that's where Clean Water Action comes into, making sure the water we have available is still safe to drink and safe to use. And then all of these other categories, eutrophication and biodiversity, are taking up even huger portions when we talk about the impacts of food on our environments. And so that's just more evidence that focusing on food as a climate solution is super important and has really important impacts when we do this really good work. And when we think about how we got here, there's a whole lot of history that impacted the way our food industry exists now. It didn't happen by accident. A lot of it has been shaped through policy and people in power and the decisions that have been made. So when we look at 300 years of history of the US, of course history is way longer than that, but these are just some snippets of some big policies and actions that happened that really made huge changes in our food system, in the way we talk about nature and land, and all of that. So when you look at the first one, it really highlights colonization and indigenous communities, and how indigenous communities continue to be the ones to care for the land and practice food sovereignty. And when the land got colonized, it totally changed that and oppressed a lot of people, and of course was a mass genocide. And then the second one is kind of highlighting about slavery. So when slavery was abolished, we really just switched to a sharecropping system that still exploited tons of people to grow a lot of the food in our country. And then after that, we look at the growth of family farms, and it's kind of this idyllic view of how we think about agriculture, and in some senses we think that that's the solution we want, but really that still rests on the exploitation of the land. And when you look at the next slide, it really led to big ag and family farmers being, oh sorry, I didn't mean the next slide. The next image, when we look at big ag, that really just oppressed the family farmers that were part of an idyllic part of American history. And big ag just has led to tons and tons and tons of soy, corn, wheat that is not diverse, is usually grown to feed animals, and really just shifts power away from our communities, and really exploits a lot of people of color and different communities in our country. So this is like a whole history of how our food system got to be the way it is, but you can see that there's big policies that made it this way. And so when we look at policy as a solution, it is one of the reasons how we got to where we are. And we have a lot of power in our communities to shift policy as we go forward, especially in doing community organizing work like we're doing here. And so now, yep, the next slide. So when we talk about climate justice, and we talk about environmental justice and food justice, they are intertwined. And climate justice is maybe a newer topic than when you look at the environmental movement historically, but it's one that goes one step further beyond just environmental issues. And we talk about it as a ethical and political issue, rather than one that's purely environmental or physical nature. So the impacts of climate change are intersecting with justice, environmental justice, and social justice, because the people who are on the front lines and most affected or have the least ability to adapt are generally communities of color, are intersect with class and race and gender and all of these issues. So that's what makes climate justice one that examines equality, human rights, collective rights, historical responsibilities for climate change. And so that's why social inequities, the environment, and our food systems are inextricably intertwined. And so food system solutions without a justice lens really only perpetuate environmental racism that's existed for hundreds of years, because without a justice lens, communities on the front lines are still left behind, and new technologies, new business ideas are ones that really still just don't consider those who are going to continue to face the brunt of these issues. And a lot of this might sound frustrating or overwhelming, but the good news is we know what to do. The solutions are already out there. According to Project Drawdown, the top food and ag solutions for reducing and capturing greenhouse gas emissions within today's political landscape are: number one, to address waste and diets, to protect ecosystems, and to shift agricultural practices through regenerative agriculture. And Project Drawdown lists 100 things that you could do outside of food too. But if we also go beyond Project Drawdown and change what we think is possible and change what our political landscape is, there's even more we can do and even more that's possible. And so within MN 350, with our BIPOC leadership on climate justice issues, we've adapted a lot of the solutions for Project Drawdown for food with a justice lens for Minnesota. So for example, our food systems team is already hard at work on promoting plant-rich diets, advocating for truly regenerative practices. And when I say truly, that means not just talking about soil health, but talking about communities and regenerating health and power to our communities. We also focus on reducing food waste across Twin Cities restaurants, leading a campaign for a statewide Headwaters Community Food and Water Bill, and featuring real world examples through our podcast, Nourished by MN 350. So this looks like a comprehensive list, and it fairly is, but we don't have anything about grocery stores. So grocery stores are a key leverage point in changing our food systems too. There's a lot of power that they hold. The decisions that are made at grocery stores affect everyone who shops at grocery stores. So by targeting grocery stores, we can really create a lot of change in how ordinary people shop and purchase food and the decisions they make to feed their families. But even though we think of grocery stores as a solution, we know it's not easy to determine the environmental impacts of any given food item in a grocery store. We know it's super easy to shop and compare nutritional value. We know it's super easy to shop and compare price, sizes, I don't know, like something that looks healthier or not, all of these things, but not environmental impacts. And so major food manufacturers, especially meat and dairy ones, really want to minimize the awareness and transparency of the high climate impacts of their products versus plant-rich ones. And grocery stores play an important role between consumers and manufacturers. Their grocery stores sometimes get to decide what products are on a shelf, or they know so much about how consumers choose and buy things. So the grocery store campaign is our chance to demand change, transparency, and urgency from grocery stores so that we can fight climate change and guarantee clean water for Minnesota.
So let's talk about grocery stores themselves. Well, grocery stores have definitely not helped when it comes to battling against corporate big ag and battling against climate change. So the number one goal of this campaign is to reduce meat consumption. We always use the phrase eat less meat, but better meat. We know that with the US population, we're never going to convince 100% of us to be able to be vegetarians. It's just not logical. So let's actually combat with a realistic expectation, where if we educate people on what these labels will mean, what exactly these industries entail, then they can make informed decisions on what exactly they are buying and consuming and supporting through their money. So beef actually has an annual revenue of $6.6 billion in the US. And to add on to that, Minnesota has a large number of factory farms. We actually have over 1,300 factory farms in Minnesota alone. Cargill is one of the largest producers and polluters, especially of beef, followed by JBS, Tyson, Purdue, and Smithfield. And Cargill is based here in Minnesota. Imagine that with how many factory farms we have. Cargill alone made $120.4 billion in 2020 and has around 166,000 employees. So they are a large target to tackle. And they are actually a humongous producers. A lot of the times when you go into a grocery store, you are looking at meat that has been produced by one of these factory farms, typically Cargill if you're shopping in Minnesota, otherwise it's JBS, Tyson, Purdue, or Smithfield. So in 2018, meat and poultry industry produced 9 billion chickens, 32.2 million cattle, 241.7 million turkeys, 2.2 million sheep, and 121 million hogs. That's a lot of animals. 80 million pigs, cows, turkeys, and chickens were held in Minnesota in the 1,300 plus factory farms. That's a lot of information all at once, I realize that. I am a stats person by heart, so when I talk, I love to give numbers. So, but when it comes to Cargill actually has over 60 subsidiaries. The most common ones are Sterling Silver, Angus Pride, Preferred Angus. You can read down the list. I don't need to read it to you. But whenever you're shopping for meat, it's very difficult to know what you're buying if it has been produced by something that is a local farm that actually is doing sustainable means, or if it is produced by somebody like Cargill that has over 60 brand names to it. So we want to, in the grocery store campaign, make it easier, more transparent about what exactly you are buying with these brands. Make sure that people know that this is a Cargill brand, this is a Tyson brand, this is a Thousand Hills brand, which they are sustainable and local to Minnesota. Let's see. So, grocery stores in Minnesota, not including co-ops, carry on average less than 8% sustainable meats in their store. 76% of people that were surveyed, we conducted a survey of over 400 consumers in Minnesota, and 76% of them actually cared about the sustainability of the products, while 83% of them cared about labeling and certifications to the meat that they are going to purchase. With that, 40% of them are frustrated due to the lack of transparency. Imagine that. So they're frustrated with the transparency about sustainability and the source of the meat that they are purchasing. Out of the 1,600 customers surveyed that were surveyed by the Food Industry Executive Survey, 63% of people are trying to eat healthier, and almost 75% of consumers pay attention to labeling and certification during their purchasing process. What all of these numbers show is that people are actually really caring about where their meat is produced, how nutritious is their meat, how is it affecting the land, and are caring about the overall sustainability behind it. But they're confused about transparency, about certifications, and confused about branding because they have made it confusing. So to give you a number of how many labels and certifications there actually are, there is actually over 430 labels and certifications out there for food. So no wonder people are confused and upset and annoyed whenever trying to find something that is sustainably sourced. But what exactly is our plan? We are actually going to be asking grocery stores to change their supply chain by supplying more healthy and humane raised meat products. So when I say that is actually a certification where it's certified, humane, raised and handled, you'll see the certification logo in the corner there. We have gone through pretty much all of the 432 labels and certifications, and this is the closest one that we could get to the needs that we are asking for. And also for like sustainability, and also something that can actually be sourced in a reasonable way. So we're not asking for something that is so strict with certification that the majority of farmers in Minnesota cannot do it for whatever means, because they can't afford it, because they don't have the land. We're not trying to shut down farmers who are trying to do well. We are trying to support and help them get in that direction. So we are also helping to ensure meats are sourced from responsible producers, and that way it actively minimizes their environmental impact. So the last thing, I already kind of touched on this, but provide clear and transparent labeling and certification. We are tired of looking at so many different certifications and trying to figure out what means what. And a lot of the times it's kind of misleading on what exactly they are trying to sell. So it can be very, very frustrating. And that's what we are asking for in our grocery store campaign. So you might be asking, what exactly are we asking for? We're asking for all of these demands. So we're asking for a difference in meat supply, poultry, and pork. Those are the three that we're mainly concerned about. There is a whole different ballgame when you're talking about seafood. So that might be the next thing that we tackle. But beef supply is so prominent in Minnesota. Producing beef is, and it also is one of the main sources of pollution. So we are looking at doing at least 50% sustainably sourced that they have in their stores. Right now it's only 8%, so 8% to 50 is a humongous jump. Out of the 50%, we're asking for 20%, 100% lifetime grass-fed certified beef, and then 30% grass-fed certified. And then at least 15% of the beef that they sell in their store has to be certified humane and humane raised and handled. So have that certification that we were talking about. For poultry, it's about the same. We're asking for at least 50% that must be free range and cage free, and at least 15% be the certified humane raised and handled. And then for pork, we are asking for at least 50% must be 100% organic. At least 40% of the products must have no antibiotics, hormones, RBGH free, and naturally raised labeling. And then at least 60% must not be grain finished. Grain finish is a humongous thing whenever it comes to pork and beef, especially. So that's one of the reasons why we're looking at 100% lifetime grass-fed certified beef. And then looking at 60% for the pork supply being non-grain finished. Okay. So who are we targeting? Our primary targets are Target, because they're here in Minnesota. They're humongous. They are across the whole entire United States, but their home is right here in Minnesota where we are. And they actually sell a lot of food to Minnesotans. Aldi is another one that we're targeting because we want to tackle the socioeconomic aspect of it. Trader Joe's is actually owned by the same parent company as Aldi, so we're tackling both of them at once in different various formats. And then Cub Foods. So secondary targets are Lunds and Byerly's. They're here in Minnesota. They're a local company, somebody that we can really talk to. They pride themselves on being local Minnesota grown food. Hy-Vee is another one, Kowalski's, which is very similar to Lunds and Byerly's. So how exactly are we going to do this? We are tackling a humongous thing here. So we are looking at, first off, we did a survey. We gathered data. We already sent a letter and asked for a meeting. And we asked for a secondary ask for a meeting, and we have been completely ignored by all of these companies. So we need to do a humongous push. We need to let them know that consumers care about this, that everyday people are caring about this issue, and that we have a group, an organization, several organizations that are very passionate about this. So by doing this, we are doing a petition for a meeting. And with that, we are asking for a meeting with these, with the different stores, to be able to talk to them about what exactly they are doing to supply, how are they using their supply chain to be able to be more sustainable, and talking to them, because I would rather work with them than go against them. It's easier to try to change the system a little bit if you actually work with them. So that's the point of the meeting. And with that, we are also going to be doing a social push. So we are going to be asking people to not only sign a petition, but drop off letters at your grocery store. So this will happen after the petition, after the meeting. If they go, no, we're not willing to change anything at all, we are fine with the supply chain the way that it is, we are going to do a social push and ask for people to really show up and show people, the managers, the people who are running these grocery stores, that we care about this issue and they need to do something to change their supply chain. I talked very briefly about the Aldi's store. I kind of mentioned just a blip about the socioeconomic side of things. One of the things that we are focusing on is we do not want to make meat more expensive for people. We never want to price people out and create hardship whenever we're doing anything. So I am working closely with the environmental justice organizer here at Clean Water Action, Sasha, to figure out how exactly to offset costs for sustainably produced meat. I'm asking for you to stand by on that. We have big plans coming up here. So we have the petition itself. So we have, let's see, I am going to go ahead and link this in the chat. Actually, Lisa, could you do that for me really quick? Thank you.
Sure.
So we're asking for you to sign the petition. Our goal is 2,000 signatures, and we are just launching this campaign. So if you could just take 10 seconds and sign it. We have a bunch of language, a bunch more facts. If you want more statistics, if you're a nerd like me and want more numbers, we have all of that on there. And then we're also asking for you to share this petition. Share it with family, friends, coworkers, people who really care about this issue. So email, text, share on social media, whatever you need to do. We did write out a quick little email blip and also a quick little, oh, that didn't save all the way. We have a quick little text that you can send out to people as well. And it will actually be shared, all this language and these slides will be shared with you in our follow-up email with the recording of this. So that way you don't have to scribble this down or anything like that. We'll send it out to you so that you can copy and paste it. Okay, well, that is all that I have for you today. I would love to be able to talk more about this. If you have any questions, feel free. Right now is the time to kind of jump off mute to share in the chat if you have any questions at all. We're happy to help out and answer anything. So either questions or comments, whatever, about this issue. As you can tell, we're pretty passionate about it. Carol has her hand raised. Hi, Carol. I can't hear you at the moment.
Hear me now?
Yes.
I don't know.
Mhm.
Okay. Must not have been plugged all the way in. I was curious if you're planning on in the future also working with the grocery stores on having more protein alternatives, vegetarian protein alternatives, and maybe working with them on store placement of these healthier options, and not, is it more, there must be research on, are people more likely to adopt these options, whether it's the sustainable or the happier meat products, or whatever you're targeting in the store, whether they're separate in their own separate area or they're mixed in with the other options. Because at least for me personally, I like them all in the same area, because then sometimes what you're looking for has an option, and sometimes it doesn't, and you don't want to have to go back and forth. There must be research on that, but I'm just curious if that's one of the things you're thinking about in the future.
Absolutely. And that's actually part of the conversation that we would like to have, because believe it or not, they actually, stores and producers of meat actually have pricing depending on where you want to be placed on shelves. So they, especially places like Cub Foods and Kowalski's, they actually have a premium shelf placement for meats and meat brands that they can pay to be able to end up in the shelving that is more eye level and people are more likely to purchase. When it comes to kind of grouping together more meat and meat alternatives, that is another conversation that I would love to be able to have with them, because it would offer a potential option for people that they might not consider unless they were purposely seeking out a meat alternative. So I think our first thing that we want to tackle is getting more sustainable meat in the store, and then talk about placement for it.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. Karen, I saw your hand go up quick.
Hi. I second the motion for placing the meat alternative products near the meat, because that's when you're thinking about what am I going to eat, and if you have the alternatives there, then maybe you might pick that. The other thing I wanted to raise is, I've been putting it in the chat too. Before we met with you, Min 350 got together and learned that so you guys are promoting grass-fed beef, okay? Which, from the standpoint of, if I was a cow, I would probably prefer that I be raised grass-fed, right? So from the cow, from the ethics point of view, the way the animals are, you can make that point. From an environmentally sustainable situation, I put in the chat, there's this movie called Cowtroversy, and if you watch it, you'll discover that if you want grass-fed beef, we need planets A, B, C, D, and E, and F to deliver that. In other words, grass-fed beef to feed people the way we're feeding people beef now is not possible, not sustainable, no way. So you can't really go with an environmentally sustainable version of the truth with grass-fed beef. Okay, but ethically, for the animals' sake, you could go with that. So just pointing that out.
Absolutely. Jeanette, I saw your hand.
Okay, yes, thank you. I come from the climate and energy side of what we're doing politically, and I've learned recently how important agriculture really is to cutting emissions. And I was wondering if Lisa could show the slide one more time with the emissions, because I think when we look at the agriculture sector, we can also note that they feed into the transportation emissions as well with all the shipping that they do. And some of the other emission sectors she showed, I think they would fall into as well. So I think their emissions might even be higher than we think. So tackling all these issues is going to be so important as we race to get down these emissions and protect our societies and communities and ecosystems. So I thank her for showing that chart.
Yes, she did link it in the chat as well, but the PDF. So if you would like to take another closer look at it, it was a very informative chart. I absolutely love it. I saw Hannah go up first.
Hi, yes. Sorry, I was mostly just listening in the webinar, so I might have missed something. I was multitasking. But I agree with Karen related to the grass-fed. I come from Brazil, and I see all the destruction being from grass-fed beef, right? All the wildfires, all the Amazon destruction. So I also skeptical about that. But I wanted to ask if you guys consider to strengthen your campaign and potentially get the attention of the grocery stores, becoming shareholders with them, like buying a couple stocks, so that allows you to attend shareholder meetings and make questions, statements, try to reach bigger shareholders, to make noise from the inside, right? To call their attention from the inside. And the other thing I wanted to ask, okay, so have you also considered that some small farmers, mostly disadvantaged farmers, maybe would not have enough income to pay for certifications? So I don't know if you're considering that. I might have missed it. So if you're looking at asking for grocery stores to only get certified products that can leave out several ranchers that are not resourced enough to pay for certifications. So I'm not sure if I missed that part or not. Thank you.
Yes, you have some fantastic points, Hannah. First, that is a very interesting point about the stockholder. That is something that I could definitely look into. I know being a nonprofit, I'm not quite sure if we could or not. So that is something that I made a note of to be able to talk later on with people about. So thank you.
Add one more about that too.
Yeah.
Cargill, who we talked about, is actually a privately held company, so you can't buy and sell their stocks, which makes them a unique target because they have the freedom to change what they're doing without having to depend on stockholders and changes, and they can do a lot of better long-term planning than most publicly held companies could. So it's an interesting paradigm.
Yes. And then the other part was, what was the second part again about? I got so absorbed in the idea. Sorry. Yes, the food certifications for small farmers. That's something that I actually am very passionate about because I don't believe in ever pricing out anybody to be able to be part of it. Right now, they're pushed out grocery stores anyways, and we want to support them getting into them. So any way that we can possibly support them, we are happy to do, and trying to figure out how exactly to help people afford, whether that is grant funded, whether there's different ways to be able to help get certifications. We are happy to help with that. So, but that is part of a consideration. So Susan, I see your hand is up.
Hi, and thank you for introducing the campaign. I was just curious if the campaign down the road was going to tackle something you referred to, and that is communicating to consumers what the actual climate cost is to buying whatever package of meat that they would be purchasing, especially if you are going to, if it's successful and you have a relationship with some of these suppliers potentially, or if you're working with other organizations that are doing that kind of work, because I think that's a huge consumer education piece that once it's in the mainstream will be remarkably useful. So thank you so much.
Yes, consumer education is the backbone of Clean Water Action, at least for the Field to Fork program. We have always been very passionate about making sure that consumers are informed of what they are purchasing. So that is a huge component. And I guess I didn't talk about it as much here because we wanted to cover more of like the petition and what exactly we're doing for the grocery store focus. But on the consumer side, educating people on what purchases are being made, what your impact is as a consumer is very important, and we are doing that. Julie.
Hi, thank you for taking my hand. One comment, when I was looking, and I don't have the list of all of the meat products or the animals that were up there, but are there any animals that are native, or are these all, animals that came over because of colonization?
I cannot answer for 100% certainty, but my initial instinct of what animals we were talking about, because we're not talking about bison or anything like that, we are talking about more of the imported animals.
Is there any way to kind of expand it so that there, are, references like encourage the stores to include bison or antelope or duck or, foods that, might be more sustainable simply because they are native animals?
Yeah, and that is something that we can provide grocery stores as alternatives. So if you can't say, if you can't supply the certification, what else can we do to make it so that you're more sustainable? And that's a part of a conversation of what we want to have with grocery stores. So when it comes to the different meats that we are right now currently focused on, it's because these are the ones that have the greatest impact and the carbon footprint on the planet right now, and especially Minnesota. So they are ones that we need to tackle and need to change now.
Okay, I'm just wondering if, and I suppose it's got to be, you really do need to focus on that effort, but I'm wondering if there is a way to kind of, and personally, I'm not eating a lot of meat. And so, just kind of thinking about where people are, and I know there are a lot of people who love their pork products or, the beef and all of that. So I get that, but okay, thank you.
Yeah, I grew up in the traditional Minnesota household of meat and potatoes every meal. But since I realized what the impact was on climate change, I have switched away from that and really paid attention to what meat, if I do buy meat, I'm buying. So even though it's more expensive, in the long run, it actually has a great economic trade-off. So budgetary trade-off too. I believe we have time for one more question if anybody has one. Stan.
Do you have tutorial materials for consumer education? In other words, do you have some kind of guides or some kinds of printed matter? How do you educate your consumers, or not your consumers, but the consumers?
Yeah, absolutely. We do things like this. We have held several different, oh yeah, turkey is also native. Sorry, I got distracted by that comment. I couldn't remember the other one that was native besides bison. So when it comes to consumer education, it's really important to be able to make sure that it's accessible. So one of the things that we do is we do things like this, where it's forums, it's recorded. We have done food labeling transparency workshops in the past to kind of let people know these are what the certifications mean. We also do have a handout as well that has been created. So, and we because there's so many certifications and it was hard to be able to narrow it down, we are just providing like, these are the top certifications that fit the change that we're hoping for, the more sustainable changes. So it's hard to be able to target exactly the certification that you want because there's so many different ones.
So the contributions to greenhouse gases, is that included in what you present?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a consideration, everything that we do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it is 8 o'clock right now, and I want to pay attention to people's time. So if you have any other questions, concerns, comments, please feel free to reach out to me. I am going to put my email in the chat. I also emailed you about the reminder for tonight, the 15-minute reminder. So go ahead and reply to that, or go ahead and send out an email to lkastenbauer@cleanwater.org. And I am happy to talk to anybody who is interested. Please sign the petition, share it. We would greatly appreciate it. This is the very start of a very long process to be able to change the way that food supply chains are happening. And thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you, Lisa, for co-hosting, and Deanna for basically running all the tech for us. So thank you for that. And have a great night.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Happy
you.
to help.
Yes.
Exciting news. Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.
Should probably stop recording and
That's what I was trying to do.